What?
They go.
Reality's here.
But of course,
He's trying to crash the party.
a lot of effort,
Reality?
a lot of resources.
Who let him in? You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda. Like, I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News. We're looking at 8:45 Central. That means 9. It's already Monday, and I'm wrong about this. 8:56. Those aren't even the right numbers to mess up. It's 8. Those aren't even the right numbers to mess up at all. I'm just making up numbers, dude. It's Monday. All right, it's about 9. Call it 8:55 in Central. It's about 10 where you are in the Eastern time here. We have the Real News, Fake News going. My name is Mr. Henry, David Sean Thompson, Zig back here as well. You, in particular, we appreciate you for being here this morning. You have stumbled upon a program entitled Real News. We make real friends here. If you stumbled across a hashtag for the first time, what we do with this program, we try and make friends with each other. We try and have calm, cordial dialogue, exchange of ideas. We try and help each other grow. If you have a problem going on in your city, we try and reach out and say, hey, here's how you get a tax proposal cut down. Here's how you try and get rid of a property tax increase. Here's, I don't know, how you try and take some ownership back in your own life. Here's how you influence your own politicians. I'm having a constant ongoing dialogue with Jessica over there in Pennsylvania way. I mean, good on you, Jessica, seriously. She's now talking to multiple council members. She's talking to commissioners. She's being interviewed by local papers. This is what we're talking about. Not just growing, living life with each other, but making impact on your own community. It's fantastic stuff. I love to see it. Yeah, we're starting a little bit early this morning. Part of the reason is because we have to be out a little bit early this morning. The company that David and Zig and I work for, it's the day before Election Day, and they're sure they have all kind of stuff to do. So they got a meeting for us set up at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. We'll be right out at that time on the dot. Be back tomorrow, I'm sure, doing some kind of election coverage or something. We'll see how that day goes. Every single morning here in the top of the show notes, you'll see linked to what our show notes are for this morning. Today, the title of this program is The Consistency of Our Inconsistency. The Consistency of Our Inconsistency. Before we get to that, though, let me kick it to my boy, David, out in East Tennessee way, buddy. How you doing, man? How was your Halloween? Everything going okay? Any updates you want to give us and stuff like that, man?
You know, it's okay. My heat went out on Friday.
Oh, really?
And if y'all living in Tennessee, or I guess most places, because there was a big Arctic front that came down over the weekend, it's cold. It's cold. So that's a little annoying, not having heat and it being cold. I got some, heaters. I'm not, dying or anything, but I have, some space heaters. Actually, I have one. I have one space heater, and I put it in the middle of the house, and it's kind of keeping it not cold in here. But besides that, it's been a great weekend. Had a happy Halloween. My brother came over, had some family time. It's just been great. So looking forward to the exciting conclusion of this season coming up in the next couple days, and excited to share that and experience that with you, the Real News audience, and with you, Mr. Henry, and when Zig gets back, with Zig too.
Hey, and by the way, speaking of Zig getting back, that image you're seeing on your screen right there, that random ceiling, that's Zig's screen. He's actually talking to an activist in his office right now in Pennsylvania.
He's a hard worker.
He is a hard worker. Hey, Shine, as I'm talking greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment, see if you can go ahead and pull up that Real News, Fake News segment there in the show notes this morning. Click on the thing that's right below that. It's the photos link.
Got it.
It'll go to a photo that you're probably looking on your screen right now. Here's the Real News, Fake News segment for this morning. Here's how this game is played. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, I haven't figured out a way to let y'all participate yet, but we'll get there. Facebook, though. Here's the headline. You tell me if this headline is real or fake by clicking at the bottom of this little thing here. Just click on real or click on fake. As of right now, let's see. This is split 50-50. Here's the headline, as I'm sure that y'all are looking at right now. It's one of my favorite. Chelsea Handler patrols polling places to make sure no black people are voting for Trump. Chelsea Handler patrols polling places to make sure no black people are voting for Trump. Now, Sean, if you could, real quick, just to lend some context to what we're talking about here, if you go back to the show notes, directly underneath that, there's a YouTube video link there. It's about 1.5 minutes long. And I'm pretty sure most people know where this headline is coming from. But I've been watching a lot of the Social Dilemma. Is anybody watching this documentary on Netflix?
Katie watched it and she deleted her Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, good. Okay. Yeah, it'll make you do that. It'll definitely make you do that, man. I'm telling you.
Start feeling like a rat in a cage. You watch that movie.
Well, I think for a lot of people, all it really takes is this simple recognition that the people that have designed this software, that have designed these programs, have done so with a pure intention of manipulating how you think. And the whole basic premise behind what the Social Dilemma is pitching this idea is like, look, if you don't know what the product is, this is like the oldest adage in the industry, apparently. If you don't know what the product is, then you are the product. If you don't know what they're selling, then the basic idea is that they're selling you. And I think the better way that somebody put this, and one of the guys that was at the forefront of developing some of the AI technology behind this, he ended up saying it's not just that. The more nuanced approach to this, what is actually happening is the product is you, but the real product is the ability to slowly and subtly manipulate your actions. That's the real product. If you want to know why you're not paying for anything, well, you are eventually, essentially. You want to know what Facebook is selling? Facebook is selling predictive programming in human beings. They're selling like you would predict a speculative market in oil or any other commodity. Like if you speculate on the honey market, I don't know. Facebook and Google, these things are in the industry of speculating on the human market, of how we interact with each other. They are specifically designed. All these social media companies are specifically designed to tailor the way that we act towards each other. Nothing more. They are in the business of manipulating to ads. The customer is not us. We are not the customer. The customer are the ad folks. Now, how does this relate to what we're talking about this morning? And how does this relate to the video that I asked Shine to pull up? Because again, in this day and age of manipulation, when all we do is interact with each other on a social media platform that is specifically designed to manipulate how we interact with one another so we buy stuff, how do you take the following clip when it pertains to the headline that we just threw up there? So Shine, play that video for us real quick if you got that queued up here. This is Chelsea Handler talking about her now ex-boyfriend, 50 Cent, and the fact that he may vote for Trump.
You heard about my ex-boyfriend, right? 50 Cent and his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah, what's going on between you? I saw your tweets and I go, wait, what's happening? Because you said he was your favorite ex-boyfriend, and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% in taxes, which, by the way, isn't a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie. So he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes because he doesn't want to go from being 50 cents to 20 cents. And I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook. So I haven't heard back from him yet, but I am willing to, seal the deal in more ways than one if he changes his mind and publicly denounces Donald Trump. I might be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I'm not going to comment on the last part that she made there. I'll let y'all just imply the rest of it, or infer the rest, rather, if you need to.
What a tart.
Has been. Because you're always smiling through all.
That's the best commentary there. So you hear what Chelsea Handler said. She used to date 50 Cent, and she had to remind him that 50. Hold on. You can't vote Republican if you're black. I mean, goodness gracious, man. We have to see the entirety of your race as a monolith. Golly, that is disgusting, deplorable language. And we're also talking today about the theme of the show being the consistency of our own inconsistency and shine. Before we move on from this, pull up that photo one more time of the Real News Fake News. Now that you've heard what Chelsea Handler has to say, and see if you can understand where I'm coming from about the real danger that not just social media is doing, because this is all a part of it today, but the real danger of the tendency of human beings to be so insanely consistent with how inconsistent we are, which is also the paradox itself, because doesn't that make us consistent at least? Or we at least have some continuity in the fact that we never do anything the same way, right? Sean, pull up that photo one more time if you can. Here's the headline. Chelsea Handler patrols polling places to make sure no black people are voting for Trump. This is allegedly, so says Mr. Henry. A TMZ headline. So here we go. I'm going to reveal the results in Facebook right now for all of you to look at. As I'm sure you'll be able to see here in just a second. 67% of you said that this is real. 33% of you said that this is a fake headline. And drum roll, please. This is a fake headline. This is. I basically took a Babylon Bee headline, edited some HTML on a TMZ script here, and just made this say this. But how would you know? Honestly, this is part of the problem of what I'm saying today, because we are so consistent with how inconsistent we are, primarily from the left, but I think there's some reactions on the right as well. You don't really know. We just lose a grasp on objective reality, objectivity itself, and what truth really would even be. Kelly said in Facebook a second ago, what was it, pertaining to Chelsea, saying, Chelsea is absolutely unhinged. I would believe it. Kelly's basically saying that Chelsea Handler seems to be such an unhinged individual that I would believe that she would walk around patrolling polling places. Chelsea, let's see, Sherry just said in Facebook, Chelsea Handler, washed up comedian, not funny. Talking about Chelsea Handler in general, not the headline itself. But no, she's right. Maybe she's just desperate to grasp back at some sense of relevancy. I don't know. And I say one of the streams of today's show is right before the election. There are so many things that are breaking down here, trying to influence swing votes one way or another. Sean, go to the national story section if you can here real quick, man, because we're talking now about, I don't know, apparently now it's a bad thing to shut down a highway. At least we all agree about this, okay? I don't know when we made this decision. Maybe it was literally just yesterday. We all got on the same page that shutting down a highway is a bad thing to do. But here's the headline from the Daily Beast. Trump supporters spend weekend clogging blue state highways, which they did, and which Andrew McCarthy has a very interesting response to, which I eventually want to get to. In this day and age of everyone being so wildly inconsistent with their worldviews and their political beliefs, is there room at all for anybody to remain consistent? Is there any sense of moral high ground left, or is that fight even worth having? Here's the headline real quick from Daily Beast. Trump supporters spend weekend clogging American highways. In a show of support, questionable political value. Pro-Trump demonstrators clogged freeways Sunday across the country, from blue states like New Jersey, New York, and Washington State to red-leaning states like Texas and purple states like Arizona. Sean, you can actually play this clip down here from Breaking 911 if you're looking at the same page I am. It'll give you a quick brief. Yeah, go ahead and play that if you want to, man. A full breakdown as to what it looks like from back, front, people going on the other side of the traffic. I mean, how many people, just the size of this in general.
We shut it down, baby. We shut it down. We shut it down. We shut it down.
They shut it down, man. Good on them. They finally did it. Almost as if a thing of like, I don't know. I'm not going to try and posit too much here as to what their motivation might have been, because that's not the point yet. I'm eventually going to get there. But for right now, he's at least just,
I think their motivation is they want Donald Trump to win.
Yeah.
I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
No, I agree with you. At this point, I think it's just they want Donald Trump to win. The reaction I find, though, is the consistency of everyone's inconsistency, that now this is a problem. That shutting down highways apparently have become a problem as of Sunday. Okay, I get this. There's some other stuff here that we that go on to say, hey, it's purple states. It's all over the place. The New Jersey Trump vehicle convoy shuts down the Garden State Parkway. There's another Twitter link in there as well. If you can find it in the national show notes if you want to. There's also see if you can find this one, Sean, in the show notes of the Evernote link. This one actually blew my mind. This one happened, I want to say either last weekend or just on Saturday or something like this. But this is a 96-mile long. I'm not joking about this. 96 miles long in Arizona. You can see cars piled up on the right side, at least they're on the shoulder in this point here, on the right side shoulder, just car after car after car. And allegedly, so says the Red Viper 2.0 Twitter account that you'll see on your screen here in a second. They're saying it's 96 miles. The entire thing stretched for 96 miles. Now, who's going to drive this entire 96 miles? I don't know. I don't think it matters. What I think does matter is that this show and demonstration of support in an allegedly purple state like Arizona, what does that say about the possible outcome for tomorrow? Now, again, you could go off the polling numbers, but I'm telling you right now, there's a Twitter trend that happened over the weekend that I'm going to get to in a second that might indicate. Do these polling numbers, are they really going to help out Joe Biden? Because I think, arguably, what hurt Hillary Clinton the most last time around was, in fact, those polling numbers. Because high polling numbers equates to extreme.
That was the second worst thing. Hillary Clinton's biggest problem was Hillary Clinton.
Valid. Okay, very valid. I hear you there.
Very unlikable.
Very unlikable. She had a very, very high unlikability, right? I think one of the other things outside of that, though, was the fact that she was polling so high. Because I know if I was a Hillary Clinton supporter, the last thing I would want to do is get out and support something that's already a win in the bag. I'd become complacent. High polling numbers usually track and trend with very complacent voters.
Yeah, but I think it's fair to question, Grant, how a cars for Trump is going to change votes. Those are cars, Grant. Cars don't vote. Not 96 miles of cars doesn't necessarily bring new people to the polls, right? I think it's fair to question that. And part of the reason why I think people should question that is people ought to say to themselves, is this the most effective way of getting out the vote? I think it's very hard to make the case that driving in a car is really most effective when you could take other grassroots action, right?
No, absolutely. I mean,
to be fair, Donald Trump is supposedly, according to a lot of people, has been knocking on 1 million doors a week since March. And, making like 100,000 phone calls a day and stuff like that. I think it shows a lot that there's a lot of to your point, though, Zig, on how it might not be the most effective way to get out the vote. I think there's a lot of politically uninitiated people involved in this election who are going to be making their voice heard on both sides. And because you've seen a lot of kind of like political amateurism, kind of like, how the weird, people who are uninitiated go out to the bars on New Year's Eve and Halloween and they make, butts of themselves. They call those nights amateur hour because it's people who never go to the bar. They go out for a special occasion. They get a little crazy, but that's what brings the life to those holidays at the, I feel weird because I'm speaking of like bar culture, but there's a lot of politically uninitiated people involved in this election because, like, I know if I was working for a campaign, the last thing I would suggest is a rally that shuts down a highway because it would be perceived as negative,
Right.
I'm not making disparaging remarks here. I'm just encouraging people who think political pageantry is going to win an election to maybe think about more substantial ways to get involved. The political pageantry in the long run is not going to be something that enhances the well-being of our nation. Really, what we need is more people thinking about policy, speaking about policy, as opposed to just showing up to these symbolic events. We've had this symbolism and this pageantry for so long that now it's very hard to talk about big picture ideas because when people think about politics, they just think about some big pageant. And I want to make it clear that that's really not all that it is about.
By the way, Jessica said on Facebook, I have a BBC reporter in my town trying to get an interview with, quote, someone who has overcome adversity and struggles and has to vote now. I won't say what they are pushing, but I'm sure you can guess. Kelly said, well, at least they aren't burning cities to the ground and looting businesses. Blocking the highway is dumb, though. Okay, I think the idea is that if everybody's looking for a narrative here, at least if that narrative had been set, they're not doing the extremes to the other side. Maybe they're playing a little bit of the same game. But to Zig's point here, and to something you said a second ago, Shine, too, look, when you get involved in amateur politics and you do this in the name of or almost on behalf of somebody else, someone can see this as sort of like vicarious representation. That someone, even though you have not been assigned this role, if you're Trump supporters in general, you are therefore speaking on behalf of the candidate, right? Again, the logic behind that may be incorrect, but that is how people are going to perceive it. And perception in a day before a vote is very, very important for a lot of people. To that point, one of the reasons why I brought this up, and also the point of what Shine just mentioned, is sort of amateur politics or whatever, can lead to some outcomes that are just like, really? Do we have to really dissect this now? But it's the headline for today. Here's the CBS News headline. You find it in the national show notes section up here. FBI is now investigating after Trump supporters surround Biden campaign bus in Texas, right? And I have the original video down here. I'll let y'all decide for yourself, but at least this is how CBS is reporting the thing the day before the election. And I'm telling you right now, I think the fact that some of this is what making headline in a small, subtle way also kind of screams to the idea that, like, I'm becoming more and more convinced every day that I think Trump might win this thing in overwhelming numbers that I just don't think people are seeing coming. And I'm not even necessarily advocating for that position yet. I'm not even saying that that's a position that I'm supporting. Of course, I'd like to see Trump win over Biden, but I just don't know if I even follow that yet. It's just people that are in the industry are starting to say. Newt Gingrich came out today and said that Trump's going to win by 318 electoral college votes or something. Right? It's
CBS basically said last night it's their Trump surge scenario, but basically all they meant is that if he if Republicans match 2016 numbers, then he wins like 306 or 335 with what they have for early voting data now. If just the same number of people come out and vote, then he wins the whole blue wall, or whatever. The Midwestern states.
Here's what CBS reported, by the way, over the weekend, saying that the FBI said Sunday that its San Antonio office is investigating an incident after video was taken of a caravan of Trump supporters surrounding and then following a Biden campaign bus on Friday. Now, importantly, this Biden campaign bus had neither Kamala Harris nor Joe Biden himself in the bus. It was some campaign staff. President Trump tweeted, or rather retweeted, part of the video on Saturday night, writing, "I love Texas." Now, again, to be fair, the video that Trump tweeted, you can see this linked in the show notes, is a video that's painting sideways from I don't know, probably 100 yards off the side of the highway. And it's just an image of a bunch of trucks with Trump flags driving beside the Biden bus. Now, a Biden campaign official said the incident occurred Friday on I-35 between Austin and San Antonio. The official said vehicles with Trump signs and flags surrounded the Biden bus and tried to, quote, slow the bus down and run it off the road. Now, that's the point where it's like, really? I just don't know. I just don't know, because the only thing I find us being consistent in right now, and I keep using that term us and we, I use that importantly. I'm purposely attempting to agitate the audience a little bit here because I'm really trying to coax everyone into having a conversation with themselves of, am I really that inconsistent? Or can I stand on my ground and say, no. I present the exact same worldview every single time. I know what I believe and I stand for what I believe in. So I am purposely using these terms us and we, realizing that it's primarily a problem on the left that the right is reacting to. But when I look at a story like this and I see that Trump supporters ran Joe Biden off the road, I don't know, man. I could read a headline that I said was on TMZ that Chelsea Handler's patrolling around making sure black people don't vote a certain way, and that looks as reasonable to me as any other headline. The only thing I can find you all being consistent in right now is your inconsistency every single day. So how do I know what truth is? And especially when I'm getting this filtered through social media applications that are specifically designed to influence my actions one way or another to buy a product. How do I know I'm not supposed to be influenced to buy your product? I don't even know what truth is right now. Texas House Representative Cheryl Cole tweeted, the Biden bus was supposed to make a stop in this area where the Austin Young Democrats were, but she wrote that they had to cancel this due to security reasons. Quote, pro-Trump protesters have escalated well beyond safe limits. She went on to say that armed Trump trolls harassing Biden bus on I-35 rammed vehicles and blocked traffic for 40 minutes. Okay, so again, to prove the point here, the ramming vehicles shine in that same national show notes section in the Evernote.
Where's the video on that? Never saw anybody.
It says original video of the incident right down there before the CBS article or below the CBS article. See in red letters there, original video of the incident, Trump supporters chasing Biden out of Texas. If you can play this video, and as Shine's setting this video up, if you watch, you'll see the video going, she pans to the right and then she pans back and you'll see the cars colliding. Now, right before she pans to the right, look around the top, I don't know, fourth quadrant, the upper right fourth quadrant of this video, you'll see a white SUV that is slowly encroaching into the lane, looking like it's trying to get behind a bus. And there's a black truck right there. Just play the video from where it is, Shine. You'll let the people decide for themselves.
It's playing right now. We're seeing kind of a couple white trucks. I think it's cycled back to the beginning of the video.
Okay. Yeah. And you can either see or you can hear the lady's voice if you want to share the audio with them or something. You can see at some point this black truck. Here, just listen to this lady.
Running them out of Texas. It is hilarious. I'm about to run out of gas, which I'm sure some of you would love.
Okay, so again, you guys decide for yourselves. But more often than not, what seems to end up happening here, either it be this situation or somebody calling the cops in a New York City park when they shouldn't, or I don't know. It seems like when you find two Karens meeting in the wild, it's best to just like assert the situation or at least analyze the situation that way. Okay, both people were being a little bit absurd and a little bit ridiculous, and they got a little bit absurd and a little bit ridiculous with each other. Can we not just call it for that?
Anecdotally, it seemed like that truck was in its space, and the white SUV was trying to push, like playing chicken, like
That's
getting
exactly
over and playing chicken.
Yeah.
And that white SUV didn't seem to have a Trump flag on it.
No, and people are saying that the white SUV was actually with that Biden bus. I guess part of the campaign or something, was trying to merge in or was trying to run the black truck off the road. I don't know, man. I don't know. But let me read this here, and this is where I want to kick it.
Makes a really good point here too. Do we even know if those were real Trump supporters?
That's another. See, exactly.
Or if because all it would take would be like 2 to do it, and then other people join in the throng, right? Or you could even have one person who started doing it and maybe was live streaming it and targeting people in the Texas area. I mean, I'm just saying it's totally possible to have created this situation out of whole cloth.
Well, and these are the questions that people have to ask, right? I mean, these are the questions that go through your mind when you're talking about a day and age where you just don't know what truth is and you can't figure out if someone's being consistent or not. Right, Michael said in Facebook, keep in mind there's a multitude of photos and video not showing the statements of violence referenced in the articles. Right, so look, let me just say this. I'll end a little bit of this commentary because I want to kick it to Zig and David for a little bit here as we get into what was trending over on Twitter on the weekend. Here's Andrew McCarthy. He tweeted this out over the weekend. And I'm just going to throw it out there to see what people will make of it. It's a little bit hard struggling through some stuff like this morning, but I just want to put some people on the spot. It's fun to do this from time to time. Here's what he says. Demonstrating at an official's home, harassing opposition's bus, and shutting down roadways. What do you win if, to beat the Alinsky left, you become Alinsky? Disgraceful, Andrew McCarthy says, and stop waving the American flag because this is un-American. I'll read that one more time for its entirety, saying demonstrating at an official's home, harassing opposition's bus, and shutting down roadways. What do you win if to beat the Alinsky left, you become Alinsky? Disgraceful. Stop waving the American flag because this is un-American. Zig, I don't know, man. Do you make anything of that? Is McCarthy going too far with that statement? Is he hitting something on the head there? Where are you coming from with that?
No, I think that analysis is exactly right, and that's what people ought to be discouraged from is trying to use these alleged left-wing tactics back in terms of retaliation. And the reason why people might feel driven to do that is because they're turning politics into a fan club, and that's really not what it's about. Politics is not a fan club. The presidential office should not be viewed as an office holder of a grand united fan club. Instead, people need to spend more time paying attention to the issues that's going on in their state. And I know that I say that all the time, but really we're overlooking a lot of things that could be resolved and addressed at the individual state level when people turn politics into a fan club.
That's a little bit the reason why I was asking the question I asked today of the consistency of everyone's inconsistency, of ours, of theirs, of everybody. Putting our own audience in the spot and calling something for probably that it's not. I would say that the vast majority of our audience is very consistent with what they believe, and they always have been, and they probably always will be. I know this. But when Andrew McCarthy comes back and says something to the extent of like, look, now all you Trump supporters are encamped in the same role as these people. Shine talks about the politically uninitiated all the time. All right. It's highly likely that these are a bunch of folks that are probably just registered or may not even be registered that are just super cult of personality about this dude called Trump because he has a bravado. He's braggadocious. He gets up there. He says things that people just want to say.
I'm not going to pretend like the country wasn't burning down for 6 months and look at this situation in a vacuum. I'm not going to play that game like the media does. The media takes every situation and says, let's put it in this bubble and analyze it like there's nothing else going on anywhere that could have affected it or that we could contrast this situation to. Okay, I think it's very telling and it makes a lot of sense to contrast. This is the most provocative behavior of Trump-like people whether they're voters or, like Grant said, they may not even be registered, or they could be, for all we know, that could be the county GOP there in Austin. Who knows?
Right.
You know, who knows what it is. But this is the most extreme example of Trump behavior in the entire election cycle. Now, let's contrast that with like 35 cities being burned.
Yeah.
Not really a big deal. Okay? Not a big deal. So, part of the problem of the past 4 years is every situation gets looked at in this bubble, and it allows for easier that narrative building. It allows easier for people to tell the story based on framing. In fact, one of the best ways to just drop framing completely is to use contrast, you know, with things that are recently contextual. And I think if you, I don't know, I don't mind saying it again. This weekend was the most extreme behavior, and it was at best civil disobedience. You know, I don't even think from a legal standpoint, because no one's been arrested. Someone would have been arrested because there's lots of license plates that were filmed. I don't even think this reaches the threshold of harassment down there in Texas, because people are allowed to drive next to people, right? People are not allowed to stand next to people. People are allowed to chant next to people. You know what they're not allowed to do? Hurt people. They're not allowed to destroy property. They're not allowed to threaten to hurt people or threaten to destroy property. So I think when you put it that way, and maybe that's me framing, right? But I think it's framing in the way that it's supposed to be done. And to say, here is the entire landscape, here is the spectrum of negative behavior, and when you look at that spectrum of negative behavior, who is on the worst side of it? Where is the most of it happening? And I think that makes a lot of sense to pull in that context, instead of pretending like we've all just been, you know, wearing our gray wigs and watching, the polls and reading them in the newspapers, and then all of a sudden this weekend, Trump supporters blocked roads, and that's the only interesting thing that's happened the entire election season. You know, you get what I'm saying, Grant? I feel like that context was very important to pull in, even though we're getting to where we only have 4 minutes left.
No, I hear you, man, and I totally hear what you're saying, right? I do think there is a way to acknowledge the reality for what it is, while at the same time still condemning this behavior. I think what will be ultimately problematic for Republicans. I mean, look, Walmart. There was a story over last weekend that apparently Walmart now is pulling all their firearms from store shelves, quote, amid fears of possible unrest due to the election. I mean, they're boarding up windows all across major cities now: DC, Miami, Chicago, LA. Doesn't matter. I mean, they're all over the place boarding up. Louisville is another one I heard about over this weekend, just in anticipation for about what's to happen on Tuesday. And I think one could reasonably say right now, it is highly likely that will not be Trump supporters that are going to go down breaking stuff if Trump loses, right? Especially not on the night of the election. It's likely he will win those numbers on the night of the election anyways. But I think what will be ultimately problematic for Republicans, much like this, is anytime you play out analysis of extreme behavior, it's not necessarily the people that are participating in that extreme behavior. It's the portion of individuals that condone that behavior. It's the portion of individuals that when you were to poll, if they were to say, like, I'm never going to do that myself, but I don't mind it happening. I think you see a lot of that on the left. This is the same way that Sam Harris critiques Islamophobia as well. This is not my critique. This is Sam Harris's critique. So if you have a problem with it, go talk to him about it. His whole perception on this is basically, it's not the problem with the 1% to 3% of individuals that are enacting this violence upon another person. The main problem is with the sizable portion of people in that community that don't have a problem with it and that never say anything about it. The real problem is with those people that are condoning the behavior, because then those individuals that are doing the actions feel justified, and not just justified, they feel motivated to do more of it and further
it's mob
increase
mentality
the volatility.
from 100 miles away, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's also bad leadership. You need strong leaders to stop people and discourage people from engaging in ridiculous things that don't build bridges in the long term. It'll be bridge building that'll win in the long term. You might win today by burning down a bridge. You won't win tomorrow if you don't build it.
Yeah, man, that's the truth. That is the absolute truth.
You know, something we didn't talk about to do with all these demonstrations of things is, like, where was the 30 people at a mall standing out there with Biden Harris signs? Where is that parade? You know, Joe Biden has like 20, 30 people at every rally. I think something important to point out is if there's people who will get out and block a road, they're definitely going to go vote. And they might drag their family, they might drag their boss, they may drag their friends there. The energy gap, that's something we didn't, I know we only got 2 minutes, but to me, watching this weekend, there's a whole bunch of people who don't normally vote who are going to be voting tomorrow. And I think majority of them are people who will be flying a red flag, Man,
and to Shine's point here to end on in the last 60 seconds, that's where I'm talking about the worry of complacency is coming from. There's 3 verified people on Twitter that this was trending over the weekend. The trending topic over the weekend was, quote, ignore the polls. I mean, 3 different people that I'm looking at here saying, look, November 1st, 2016, New York Times gives Hillary Clinton an 88% chance of winning the election. Ignore the polls, vote. Here's another one. Today is Sunday. Water is wet. Trump is a disaster. Ignore the polls. Pass it on. The final one just says, ignore the polls, vote. All right. So the idea is, look, the polls are saying you're going to win. We're not so comfortable with that, though. Us verified folks in the Twitter sphere, we don't really think so.
Joe Biden's campaign said 2 weeks ago that the race is a virtual tie. Joe Biden's campaign said that in a Zoom call to activists across the country. It's tight. Don't. The Joe Biden campaign says don't read the polls.
Hey, y'all, we got to get on a call here. The 3 of us do. We love each and every one of y'all sincerely. Got to end a little bit early this morning, but we will be back tomorrow doing it big. Love y'all.